Hi everyone, Sajid Amit here, and welcome to another review. In this review, I'll talk about a very interesting headphone. It is a Focal Radiance, and the reason why it's interesting, of course, is because of several reasons. It's a collab with Bentley Motors. It is a closed back that looks beautiful and performs pretty well. However, and of course, there are many reviews of the Focal Radiance out there on the internet. I do want to contrast my review by contrasting this headphone with the open back cousins, the Focal Clear, which is quite famous and rightly so. To jump into the review, first of all, the review structure. I'll first talk about why I do reviews and who I am, and then I'll move into a discussion on the tonality of these headphones, and then the technical performance of these headphones, and finally, I'll sort of do this in a different kind of way. I'll finish by talking about things like build, aesthetics, and comfort. So that comes last. So my name is Sajid Amit, and I do reviews for fun. It is another way for me to engage with the hobby. It is not how I make money at all. Most of the reviews that I've done so far, whether they are written reviews on HeadFi or video reviews on YouTube, I do because they're fun for me to do. I don't get paid for these reviews. So let's say, for instance, this was something I owned when I sold it to a friend of mine. The same friend ended up buying the Radiance. Now, so that means basically I don't have any vested interest in playing up any headphone. So hopefully that puts your mind at ease in terms of whether I get any sort of financial incentives. I don't. And yeah, and if you've seen my previous reviews of, let's say, the Phi TC, the Abyss, or the Susvaras or the Raw, they're all headphones I personally own and enjoy greatly. So this is just my way of engaging with the hobby. With that out of the way, to talk about music and how these headphones sound. Another disclaimer is, so when I first bought the Focal Clears, it wasn't love at first listen at all. There's some debate on the internet about burn-in, of course, and some people think that burn-in is placebo and others think that burn-in is real. For me, guys, I'm not going to make general statements, but this definitely became better for me over time, whether it's brain burn-in or what have you, it did. My first impressions of the Focal Clear was that it was a very neutral headphone and highly detailed for its price point and all that. But I found the treble frequency slightly sibilant, which has gone away over time. So that's something that I think is worth mentioning. The other thing is that straight off the box, these were very easy to listen to. And I didn't find them any sibilant. And to some extent, I think this perhaps requires less burn-in if you do want to believe in burn-in. Now, to talk more about sound and dive deeper into tonality, bass. The bass of the Focal Clear is wonderful. It's a very neutral headphone. It's not the bass is not elevated, and it's not inadequate. And so when I listen to Focal Clears now at this price point, I never find the bass wanting or the bass too much. It's just nice, detailed, tight, fast bass. It's wonderful. With the Radiance, however, you get more bass. So the more-ness comes in the sub bass and it comes in the mid bass. So you get both the sub bass growl, slightly more than the Focal Clears, and you also get a slightly more mid bass punch. And in the bass region, the frequency response of this somewhat is similar to the Focal Stelia's frequency response in the bass region. So that gives you an idea if you're coming from a Stelia or if you've heard a Stelia. This is more bassy headphone. However, I do think the Clear has more bass quality. I hear more tightness in the bass when I listen to the Clears, and I, of course, find more details in the Clear bass. And this is going to be a theme throughout the review, where I'm going to draw upon technical performance issues as I talk about tonality, because honestly speaking, these two things are not that easy to separate, and one does influence your enjoyment of the other. So that's bass as far as I'm concerned. The mid-range of the Focal Clears are very nice. They're very neutral. So, I mean, music is supposed to be musical, right? So they're not going to add a lot to the musicality of the track. They're not going to subtract from the musicality of the track. If you've seen my, just for the sake of context, if you've seen my Susvara and TC review, you'll see how I talk about the Susvara being a sweet headphone and adds sweetness to the mid-range. The TC being slightly drier in the mid-range. This is neither. This is neither sweet nor dry in the mid-range. This is a nice, detailed mid-range without any necessity. I don't find it overly warm or bright. This, however, is slightly warmer because of the energy coming from the mid bass, and it's slightly thicker, the mid range. So that means that I think you find a little more lushness in vocals. You find a slight smoothing of a lot of instrument lines, and which really works with the closed back, I think, because I find that I personally like my IMs and closed backs to have more warmth. And yeah, so it does give you a little more warmth than the clear does, and but it's not as detailed as the clear in the mid range. But it's still very good, and I think on many tracks they're indistinguishable, which is saying a lot because it is a closed back. And yeah, so that's that. When it comes to treble, I think over time I've come to the realization and the conclusion that neither have an offensive treble. They're both pretty nice. The treble is, not offensive, but I do think that the clears have slightly more treble energy, especially in lower trebles. So in upper mid range lower treble, around 4K, the clear has this energy which gives it A, clarity, and B, it's also wonderful because you get more bite on electric guitars, and you get a sort of a more tactile feel with cymbal hits. So overall, I think this presentation of the clears lend to the dynamic energy of the clear, which makes this very interesting for rock and EDM and all kinds of other genres, to be honest. This is slightly smoother in that region, so I think this is nice if you are looking for a slightly more laid-back presentation. This could well be among Focal's most laid-back headphones, if not the most laid-back headphone Focal has ever produced. Last tonality, so if I had to summarize tonality, I would sort of say that this is a neutral tuning, and this is a slightly warm of neutral tuning with bass energy. Now, to talk about technical performance, in terms of details, the clears are very impressive, as you might have heard, for $1,500, and now it actually goes for much less. Like you can get the clears for around $1,000. For detail retrieval, the clears are phenomenal at this price point. The radiants are pretty good for a closed back, but then I don't think they're as detailed as the clears. In terms of staging and imaging, neither are very wide, and you might know that not even Utopia has a very wide stage. However, this is a slightly wider stage compared to the Radiance. The imaging is great on both. This is slightly better imaging. Positional imaging is slightly better. And another sort of point about the stage with the Focal clears, you get slightly deeper stage, which does get even deeper with a 2M, is what I found. But overall, I mean, if you like the Focal clears, if you have already, you know what I'm talking about. The stage is not going to be the home run, the sort of shining facet or the feature of these headphones that stand out. But the stage is not something that's going to detract you from enjoying these headphones because it is fairly well layered. The stage here is narrower than on the Focal clears, but it's not absolutely horrendous like a lot of closed backs can be. And I'm being, of course, harsh. It actually has decent stage for a closed back. It's very similar to the Focal clears. So again, it's not very wide, but it's not going to be offensively small, and the depth is okay here. Imaging, like I said, is comparable across both, with the Focal clears having slightly better imaging. Now, to talk about speed and dynamics, they're both very fast headphones. I think the Radiance is slightly faster, a hair faster, and it's slightly more slammy. It's more tactile. But overall, having said that, though, if you're indifferent between an open back and a closed back, although the Radiance does slam harder, I think you get more texture with this kind of slam, because it's just more detailed, and the bass decay is wonderful. So you get a sense of the trailing end of notes. And just not just the bass, right? I mean, when I say it's dynamic, it's everything. Its dynamism is across the frequency range, and Focal headphones have this very authentic way of doing dynamic, which I love. You get that with both these headphones, but I do think you get slightly better quality of slam and punch with this. But if you're looking for a mount, this has more. And finally, talk about timbre. Neither of these headphones are gonna blow you away for timbre. They're not ZMF headphones by any means. This is slightly more metallic sounding, which I think is fine. When I say it's metallic sounding, it's not going to sort of, again, offend you with this metallicness, but you do sort of sense a more metallic hue to the sound, so to speak. And with this, it's slightly less metallic sounding. So that's it for sound. Just to quickly compare the ZMF Atticus, which I had with me when I was ABing across these headphones. I wasn't a big fan of the ZMF Atticus. I think it's overly warm, and I felt in the mid-range, especially the upper mids, the bass and the upper bass especially have this bleed into the mid-range, which makes the bass very bloated, and it masks a lot of details, I thought. And there's this spike in the 5 or 6K, which introduces sibilance. So overall, this Atticus was not for me. And also in terms of raw technical performance, I don't think the Atticus comes close to the Focal Radiance, and they both close back. So if you're thinking of the Atticus, which comes in around $1,100, I do think this is a better headphone. Of course, the Atticus has better timbre, and when you tube all of them, the Atticus does sound very lush and nice. If you're looking for something very, very laid back, the Atticus could be your headphone. Could be a headphone that you like. But they all take both tubes. That's it, really. And lastly, to talk about aesthetics, build, and comfort. Yeah, I mean, they're all aesthetically nice looking, the Focal headphones. This was rather unique when it came out, very iconic in its sort of silver and gray aesthetics. This is all black, which will get a lot of takers. Black with this sort of copper, rose gold sort of accents. It's very cool, guys. And yeah, and if you are looking for, if you care about aesthetics, I think you're going to like how it looks. It does look great. And of course, you get the entire. It's also very isolating, if that is of importance to you. It is very isolating. So my voice is not very audible right now, and the music, the sound isolation is pretty good, and music is not going to leak out. And I've had my wife, for instance, work right next to me a few feet away, and she wasn't able to tell what music I was playing, and she wasn't able to tell if I was playing music, if my volume was turned down low. So, and overall, it's very well built, as you'd expect from Focal headphones. It comes with the cables, I'm sorry, and the shortest cable is actually very short that it comes with. It's around 4 feet. But of course, you can get aftermarket accessories because these are pretty easy to replace, given the 3.5 millimeters at the cup side. That's it, really, guys. If you like this review, subscribe to my channel, and of course, feel free to ask me questions, and I'd love to engage you in conversation. And with that, stay safe during COVID, and hope to see you again. Bye.